Alright, we're back here again. I'm just going to put some glue down, so I'm going to set the body first and then try and align it so that everything looks great, and let's do it. So 50-50 of this. So there you have it, my two blobs. They're not exactly 50-50 I bet, but whatever, it's close enough. Alright, and I'm just going to mix these. Alright, I think that's alright. Now this is only going to be enough to do one, and then we're going to do the same process again for the other part. So I'm going to start with the back. So I'm going to apply it to one area. So I'm just going to, and don't go too thick, because don't forget, if you go too thick there's going to be a gap in your model. Kind of it won't quite touch. So try and get it as thin as you can, but as long as it makes contact, because this stuff is pretty strong, you won't get it apart afterwards. I think it's a little bit better than super glue for me, especially if you're using acetone afterwards, because if your model warps when you're using acetone, or if you've used super glue, it can warp around the super glue and then just crack off, because acetone doesn't respond to super glue, and it just cracks off. Okay, we'll just put that on there. Now if you think you've got too much on, then this is the time to kind of strip it off, because don't forget the clock is ticking now. Once it starts hardening, it won't be any good. You have to sand it all down again. Alright, I think that's alright. If there's a tiny gap, don't worry too much about it. So I'm going to place this down now. And the process now, what we do now, is basically look at it from every angle and try and keep realigning it. So the thing I like about this glue is that at the beginning it moves quite easily, but then it goes harder and harder and harder to move. So it's almost like you can have more precision in your moves later on. So right now I'm just kind of moving it into places that I think are correct. And then you'll see, then it just gets harder and harder to a point where you just won't be able to move it again. Kind of remember, keep looking in angles so that you know the flow of, say, the folds will be good, because that's all I'm really looking for. So sometimes your bits of your edge will be sticking out, but try and look past that and look for the actual detail of the model. So because you may not have sanded it down properly or whatever, but keep like every angle, make sure the back's right. But again, if it's risen up a bit, kind of take account for that. So that's all I'm going to be doing now, just pushing it together and looking and realigning, because I haven't put the pegs in. Also try and take account warping and stuff. You might have to add a little bit extra stuff because it might have warped at the base. Like here, you can see that there's a bit sticking out there, but whatever. You can sand bits down and whatnot. And it's risen up a bit at the back, but I'll just file that down. So you're trying to get a flat area for the head to go on as well. But that's not your priority. You can always sand that down after this. These have stuck, so just make sure these are aligned as best you can. Now you can use rubber bands if you really want to, like a tight connection, but we're only talking I don't think it will make much difference because after it's set, it's pretty much set, so the rubber bands are optional. I mean, if you've got a peg, it might be quite a good idea to have the rubber bands hold the stuff tighter together, but for my purposes, I don't need them. Alright, I'm just going to leave that for a bit now. I'm fairly happy, and I'm fairly happy that's not going to slide down because it's pretty much set now anyway. I'll just give it a couple of minutes extra. I mean, this is still tacky, so I'll wait until this is not tacky at all. As you can see, my fingerprint in there here. So we'll just leave that for a bit. Alright, so that's that done. Now, I completely forgot that there's no hole here, so there's a hole between these two. So I need to make a hole here. So that's what I'm going to do now. So now we've got to cut all that stuff off. Now you're meant to cut away from yourself, but I find it less precise. So just try not to chop your fingers off if you're doing small little moves, otherwise you might just run it across your thumb and then slice it open, so don't do that. We will bring back our pad and do the same thing on this side. And that should fit quite nicely. Alright, there we go. So now I'm going to glue the head on. Alright, here we go. Fingers crossed it comes out alright. So we're going to be doing the same thing here. We're going to be just aligning it to the best of our eyesight because I haven't put any markers in. So just try and follow again the curves and the folds if there are any folds, or anything that you can see a form, follow the form of the model basically, and you can't go wrong really. Even if it's a massive gap, you can fill it up, and as long as the lines flow, you'll be alright. Alright, at this stage it's pretty much too late if I've made a mistake. And I've got to be honest with you, this is probably the worst way to do it, but if you're in a hurry and you just want to splice your model, then I can't see a problem with it if you don't mind doing a little post work, which you're going to have to anyway. So as far as I'm concerned, it's good enough for me. I haven't actually learned how to do the pegs, but I wouldn't be able to do the pegs anyway because I want the model hollow, so I'd have to do very small pegs all around and then do booleans and other booleans and make it all match, and I can't be bothered with all that. I'm just going to slice and stick it together. It's good enough for my purposes anyway. And that's pretty much it. So there's my dog. Alright, this is pretty much dry now. It's still a little bit tacky, so I reckon I'll give it a little bit longer because I didn't mix the quantities as accurately. So it's best to get them as accurately as you can, but obviously you don't have to be perfect. It's good enough. And there you have it. My bulldog. And that's about it.